Hello, and welcome to MetaMoms, a polyfamily podcast. I'm Taya.
And I'm Alicia. Today we are talking about the legal protections that you can put in place for your family. Talk about third-party adoption, the healthcare system, the system that maybe isn't set up for the polyamorous people, and the things that you can do to protect your family along the way.
And honestly, for the monogamous folks that also listen in, there's some really important stuff in here for you too. If you don't have things like a will and trust, you're gonna want to listen in and see why you should get moving on those things, because familial protections aren't just for polyamorous people. And there are things you can do to protect your kids, to protect your relationship, to protect your family.
If I can tell you one takeaway from today, please get your will done.
Do your will. Do that will.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into it.
Let's start with why this is important. And it's important to more than just our family, because a lot of these protections are for people who are not biological parents to these children. We end up falling under a lot of the same rules and regulations that come along with same-sex marriages and same-sex parenting.
Yeah, we've mentioned before that the system is not designed for polyamorous families or non-traditional families in general, but there are other things, even when it comes to being a step parent, that you don't always have the same rights as a biological parent. And there are some things that have already been set in place for families that are blended, but not in a family like ours, or in same-sex marriages, or even in a state where maybe a same-sex marriage isn't legally or formally recognized. And there's a lot of barriers that come with that. So we want to cover those topics and really dive into the struggles that we've faced, but also the things that we have seen or read about that have been successful, and the paths that have already been carved in other states, but also some things that have been successful in Oregon here too. And also the challenges that we're still facing.
We're going to talk a little bit about what we have done, what we plan to do, and what we still need to learn more about. As a little bit of background, polyamory is not a protected class. It is not a protected class in the sense that you can get fired for being polyamorous. There's nothing protecting you from repercussions because of your relationship dynamic, which is crazy considering most people at our jobs don't even know the difference, so
Yeah.
it's just crazy. There are very few states that allow for something like third-party adoption, which is something we're going to talk about today. There are very few states that allow for multiple parents on the birth certificate. In fact, some states only have mother and father. They don't even have the parent-parent option still.
But even just, school barriers too. We've dealt with medical barriers, school barriers, like when it comes to insurance and inheritance and some of those basic things that you don't think of being obstacles until you're in a relationship like ours and you want to take your non-biological child to the doctor and you're being questioned as to if you have the right to take them or hear or make any medical decisions about a kid that you've raised since they were born.
In our situation, let's say, we have all been a part of the kids' lives for longer than we haven't, whether it's the older kids, and then obviously we've been there from the beginning with the little kids. Either way, whether biology or not, it would be far more detrimental for one of us to be removed from one of our non-biological children's life. God forbid there's a tragedy or something that happens and we aren't protected as parents. And now not only are our kids separated as siblings, but they've lost the other parents that they know because of the law, because of a possibly biased judge. And we're going to get into all that. But the idea of that is soul crushing for me, because we want so badly to show up and take care of these kids. We're asking to be put on the birth certificate. We're asking to be held responsible for them because that's what we want. We've been there from the start. And so really a lot of what this comes down to is just a judge's decision. And if they have any kind of bias towards polyamory, they could tear our family apart in the face of a tragedy. And that is terrifying. When we did talk about this on the show, there was a lot of things missing. not just misconstrued, but missing. So we really want to dive into this a little bit more because one, it could help some people and we could let you know kind of what we've learned and what we plan to do. And two, I think it's really interesting to know what's out there and how it differs by state. And there are some things that we've found that can help us.
So, I mean, I guess to kick it off, the very first thing is that in Oregon, the law is that your married spouse goes on your birth certificate with as the father of the child.
Yeah.
So
If you're married,
yeah.
your spouse goes down on the birth certificate.
So in Barrett's case, as being the first of the littles that was born, Tyler was put on the birth certificate as Barrett's father. And then
and we didn't have a choice in that.
Right. And then for Carver and Quentin, Sean would be listed on the birth certificate as their father because he is Taya's husband per the state of Oregon's law.
And they do not care about biology.
No.
They don't care at all. It's whoever you're married to goes down as a spouse. That is in Oregon. That is different elsewhere.
Before we even were pregnant, Taya had actually done some of her own research and looked up the concept of third-party adoption and seen that it was something that was possible in Oregon. And so when we met with a lawyer, the first lawyer on the show that said that there was no precedent for it, it was not possible, we were caught off guard by that because that's not the research that we had found. But
right. And it was pretty upsetting.
Yes.
Temporarily, obviously, to be told. Like, we had read that it's happened. And then we went to meet with this lawyer and she was like, no. And we're like, but, and she's like, no.
And that we would have to change the law. I was fired up. I'm like, yeah, let's change the law. Let's do it.
I mean, if that's what we have to do, like, hell yeah. But where is this coming from? Because that's not the research that we found. But also, this is a professional. So we were like grieving the idea that third-party adoption is never going to be an option. And then decided to go get a second opinion.
Yes. And the second opinion gave us a much more optimistic outlook because that lawyer had actually worked on cases where third-party adoption happened in Oregon. Unfortunately, in adoption cases, more often than not, those are sealed records because it does have to do with children and they're under the age of 18 and is protected. And so that information is not public information. So it's harder to find more cases about that because people don't like putting that information out there. We have read other cases. I remember one of us sharing an article between the four of us about one happening in Canada recently too.
Because they chose to. So basically, if the parents don't choose to share and put it out there that this is a thing that's possible, then you won't know about it. So there could be tons of other cases, but because they don't talk about it publicly or do an interview for an article or whatever, we don't get to read about it. We don't get to see what made them successful. We don't get to know who they are. We don't get to talk to them, so there could very well be resources out there, but they're very limited because of personal protections, which is great. And also makes it kind of hard because the precedent is, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, we do know because she personally had worked on a case. We know there's been at least one case in Oregon where they did petition the courts. And that's ultimately what she told us, is that there's nowhere in the law that says that we can't try.
Right. And she gave us hope. And she basically said, you're more likely to be able to be successful if you go to a more liberal county. Where you have a judge that could be potentially more open-minded. So, unfortunately, she basically said, maybe don't try in the county you live in.
Because it costs money.
It does. It costs money.
We would be out money. You have to pay for background checks. You have to pay for...
you have to do a home study through DHS.
You have to do a home study. You have to pay for background checks.
Which is like $3,000 just for the home study, and it's only good for 2 years, and the process takes a while too. So you need to make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you start the process, because if that home study if you're not ready to go when you start your home study that's only good for 2 years, then by the time you get to the courts and you get to the actual judge, if you're not all the way ready to go and you have to start over with the home study, you're dropping another $3,000 to start over in that process.
Yeah. So it's very expensive. And we're more than qualified to apply and to try and to get ourselves in front of a judge. And that's essentially what she explained to us we'd be doing. We'd be petitioning the court, trying to get in front of a judge, asking to get in front of a judge so that we can explain our dynamic, and then they could ultimately make a ruling, because the law is not, it doesn't say that we can't petition for a third person on the birth certificate, which is what we're talking about specifically, is another person on the birth certificate.
It's essentially allowing a third person to be on the birth certificate. So that's allowing the adoption from that third person by getting them onto the birth certificate.
Mm-hmm.
That person is now adopting that child.
Yeah.
And so the entire purpose behind our third party adoption was initially, Taya had talked to Tyler and I about this, about how she would like to see me on the birth certificate for any biological children she has. Because the idea is, if Tyler and Sean are both potentially going to be a biological contributor, the only way that I could be legally tied to that child would be being able to be third-party adopter or a legal parent on the birth certificate.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our purpose behind third-party adoption, is so that the moms, Taya or myself, could be on the birth certificates.
Because it's third party, and fourth party seemed like a stretch.
Right.
After lots of conversation, that it would make sense for the moms to be the addition onto the birth certificate, because then there is like step parent rights that may go along with that. But again, like, everything is so unclear. After we talked to the first lawyer, because it was so devastating, like, we even talked about, like, do we get divorced and then automatically have, like, we talked to her about this, like, do we both get divorced and then remarry the other way so that we have step parent rights? Like, and she was like, that's not really.
Yeah, she basically said there's no such thing as step parent rights, is what she had said. And the way that it came across, the way that she the information that the first lawyer gave to us was basically that it would just be replacing somebody on the birth certificate.
Right.
And that was not our intention.
Somebody has to sign away their rights in order to then replace.
And that was never our intention. We don't
that's sliding backwards.
Yeah, we don't want one of the parents to give up their rights so somebody else could then gain rights. We want to add an additional parent to the birth certificate so that 3 parents have legal rights to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point.
And I don't want to reference the show in a sense that, like, arguing what they said, but I think it's important to restate what our intentions were. And our intentions are to legitimize our family. Our intentions are to protect our family, not because anybody's coming after us. Okay. Just making it clear that third-party adoption for us is a way to legally legitimize our family. It's a way to protect our kids, not from somebody taking them away, but from any kind of tragedy being that much worse.
Yes.
Because as of right now, as it stands, if something were to happen to Tyler and Alicia because the house is in their name, we would be out of home. It's not just the kids that we have to talk about how to protect. It's our home. It's our insurances. It's
life insurance
trust.
too.
It's life insurance. Mm-hmm. It's all the things that monogamous people have the privilege of doing. They can put their spouse on their insurance. We cannot.
I can't put Carver or Quentin on my insurance.
Yeah. So our kids had to go to a different dentist because I had different insurance than they did, and they couldn't go to the same dentist for the longest time. And we, eventually my insurance changed and now they do. But, like, it's little things like that end up making us have to continue to be separate, and it makes things just that much harder.
Yes, the cost of third-party adoption, when we spoke with the second lawyer, was quite large. We were told
Same.
We were told about $8,000-$10,000, which is
a kid.
No, total.
I don't remember.
It was about $8,000 to $10,000 to do the third-party adoption, because we'd have to do an adoption process, a birth certificate change for each of the 5 kids, because it would be adding Taya to the 3 older kids' birth certificates and adding myself to the 2 younger birth certificates. Mm-hmm. And this is if we got approved.
Right.
So there's still a chance that if we went through that entire process,
right,
we could still get denied.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big risk to go through that entire process, all to go to a judge that might look at those papers, look at our story, look at our application of like, please let us care
No
for
matter
these
how
kids.
prepared we are, no matter
Yeah.
how long we've been there.
And still say,
no,
I don't think so. So at this point in time, we want to wait at least until we are in a place that we feel more prepared.
Hence why this won't be our forever home.
Yeah. But in the meantime, we still do our research, and there are other legal things that we can do to make sure that we are protecting ourselves.
Mm-hmm. We did hyphenate the little boys' last names.
Mm-hmm.
So they have both of our last names, which legally doesn't really do a lot, except for the fact that it ties us together. Like, obviously, in school, they're going to know who belongs to who. They're going to, they have the same last names as their siblings. I mean, we talked about combining our last names at one point, but like, what are our options? Hodgeless, Rartless,
We've asked for
Rodless,
we've tried many different combinations, and it doesn't quite work well. Heartless Rogers, it works. Yeah. So the three little boys have hyphenated last name. We talked about when third party adoption does happen,
or a commitment ceremony,
or a commitment ceremony. We will always give the big kids an opportunity to choose.
Yeah.
So we're never going to force them to change their names if they don't want to.
No.
But the little boys, we did want to hyphenate their names to kind of show the combination of our families
because we
together.
can.
Yes.
I mean, really, like, that was one thing that we could choose to legitimize our family that felt good for everybody. And we're all very much obviously involved in their life. And so that is one thing that felt amazing, honestly, to see their last names together. And they are, the three of them specifically are such a representation of our coming together and co-parenting, and they changed everything, right? And so I don't know, it's been a fun journey with them, but it's also scary because there's so many ways that we're unprotected. And some of the things that we do now are like every 6 months, we have to bring home new paperwork from the doctor and fill out the forms that allow somebody who's not their biological parent to bring the kids in. And that includes for emergency situations. If one of the kids were to get hurt, and myself and Sean, I work from home, Sean's the stay-at-home parent. So both of us are the ones that are home. And if we're the first to the hospital, there's a chance they don't let us back. If we get questioned in terms of like, we could show up and say, oh, I'm their step parent, I'm their parent. But if they ask if it's biological, like, they're not going to let us in. And a lot of times I think you can get away with it. But in the sense that our kid's really sick and is in the hospital for an extended period of time, there are going to be parents that are not allowed to come in because we don't have legal ties to these kids, even though we have wiped their butts since day one. And that is like so frustrating and disheartening for us because I don't know, it's hard when you show up the way you do and you play the part and you do all the things and you don't get the same legal recognition. It feels wrong.
Yeah, especially when you try and talk about the idea of like appealing to a judge and telling a judge like, we're begging you to make us legally responsible for these children.
Yeah.
When there's been so many comments, I think it's hilarious when people were like, there's a lot of single parents out there that don't have a father figure in their life. And yet we're trying to show up saying that we want to have 4 parents be legally responsible for all of these kids.
The idea of us laying our story out there and going in front of someone and pouring our heart out, because that's what we would have to do. We would have to give them everything, right? To really show them the love and connection of our family and the way that the judge has to decide that this is truly what's best for the child. And in my mind, it's so obvious. But bias is very real. And I think anyone who's heard us knows that we've experienced a lot of fallout. We've experienced a lot of, I mean, what if that judge has experience with cheating and that person said, well, I'm polyamorous. And then all of a sudden they have this bias that polyamory is cheating and that's
Mhm.
all they know about it. And then they see, so it is their job, obviously, to be educated and to remain unbiased, but that's just not how it goes. And so it's scary. It's scary because we could get it assigned to someone who ends it all because they don't have the education that they need to understand that this is real, that this is legit, that we're trying to sign up for being responsible for these kids. And honestly, there are a number of other ways that we've looked into trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah, we've talked about, so with meeting with different lawyers, there's options with wills, with living trusts,
Yeah.
with LLCs, but with wills,
That was the one takeaway that
yes,
the
yeah.
lawyer said.
Some of the takeaways we have is being able to create a parenting plan, and if you have a parenting plan, being able to show that to a judge, being able to have a will. A will and a trust are different. A lot of comments that we got after the show came out were basically like, just do a will. That's all you need. It depends on the state. It depends on the judge. Yes,
They
if
could
you
still look
have,
at that and be like, this isn't in the best interest of the child.
yes, if you have a will, that's great. That helps you with your property and who you want the property to go to. If you are in Oregon and you don't have a will, trust me, please get a will. I have went through it with a bonus parent, and it was very long and difficult
Years.
to go through the whole probate process when you don't have a will. So being able to have that document that says where your possessions go, who gets to have them, that's lined out, wonderful. Doesn't quite work the way when it comes to the guardianship of your children.
Well, and also even a will is just what you wanted. It's just your intention.
It can still be
Technically,
contested.
it can still be contested. It can still be turned over by a judge. It can still be changed after the fact. The lawyer said that her number one thing above all else and that she tells to everybody is to get a trust. Get a trust yesterday, because that's where we can really protect ourselves. That's where we can put the house.
Yeah, we can put the house, we can put life insurance, so that if we want the money to be able to go to the kids, and we can put all of the kids on there. It doesn't just have to be biological kids, which we still have intentions of getting it all done.
Our intentions are to continue going down the path of establishing a will and a trust so that our home is protected, so that our kids are protected, our inheritance,
Life insurance, all of our
those
properties.
things. For the parenting plan, if you have kids, monogamous or polyamorous, a parenting plan doesn't hurt. Do it when you're in love, do it when you're happy, do it when you have your best intentions, because if anything were to ever happen, you have down on paper what you wanted when emotions were not in play, right? Or big emotions, bad emotions, whatever. If you're trying to make parenting decisions when things are blown up or you've been cheated on or trust broken or whatever, it's gonna suck. So if you can sit down and make a parenting plan now, is it legally binding? No. Does it also show what your intentions were, regardless of the emotions or the hurt that's happened? Yes.
And that one's always an interesting concept and idea, and I find as an odd question that people ask polyamorous people, or at least ask us quite often, is what happens when you break up? Like, it's always the assumption that we are going to break up. So when it inevitably happens, what happens to the kids? If you're not going up to a monogamous person and saying what's going to happen to the kids when you guys inevitably break up, don't do it to polyamorous people.
Also,
just putting that one out there.
Also, maybe, I mean, honestly, the answer to that question for most people, I feel like, is I don't know, right? Like, most people don't have a parenting plan in place. Most people don't prepare for a breakup when they're happy. Right. And all I know is that well before we started having children together, we had an agreement that we were going to be in these kids' lives for life, that we are going to, as long as this is the best scenario for everybody involved, as long as everyone is thriving, as long as our agreement, first and foremost, is to be parents and show up for the kids. And that does not have anything to do with our romantic relationships.
Right.
And I know that that seems like a strange concept for some people, but to me, the partnership of parenting is different than romance, especially as a polyamorous person who's had relationships outside of my home. I genuinely feel like the commitment to parenting, showing up for a kid, being their village, that is separate than the romantic piece of it. So break up who? I don't know, but I know what our parenting commitments are, and I know that we're all committed to staying in their lives and being our best selves and continuing to grow and continuing to work together to make the best decisions for them.
Yes. And so even if we don't know all of the answers, if and when that were to ever happen, we know that we will figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
We will show up for our kids because that's the commitment that we made. It's not typical to plan for how you're going to parent if and when a breakup happens. Yes, that in an ideal world, that would be great to be able to plan for that. And I would highly encourage that. But that's not a typical thing to do. So if you are in a great place to be able to do that, more power to you. I would highly encourage you to do that.
Or even just talk about it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What's going to be in the best interest of the kids, but also those things are ever changing too.
Mm-hmm.
As we go back to like a motto of our family, everything's a conversation.
Right. And that's really what it comes down to is our answer is the kids are going to be wherever is best for them at the time. And point blank period, like that's it. Because I don't want my bias towards if my relationship implodes and I'm salty about it, I don't want my biases then leaking onto my kids. I don't know why I said that. I don't want my kids to experience dysregulation because of my feelings about my romantic partner. I want them to have that consistency and to know that we're not going anywhere, regardless of our relationship status. And what's best for our kids going to continue to change. What's our romantic relationships will continue to change. Our partnerships will continue to change because we're never done growing. That's for damn sure. We're always going to have more work to do. If polyamory has taught us anything, it's that there's always more work to be done.
Always. And it's good to change. It's good to be able to work on yourself and continue to change and grow. But I understand it's very hard to plan for a breakup when you're in a good place as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are asked, well, what happens to the kids when you guys break up? That obviously is a very hard question to answer and a very kind of off-putting question because that's not something you normally plan for. But we show up for our kids the best way that we can, no matter where we're at. And I think that that's been recognized in multi-facets of their lives. I'm thinking of like schooling wise, we have not had any pushback when it comes to being an alternative family dynamic, when it comes to being in the school system. And that was a place that I actually thought we would experience more bias than we have. And that's been a really cool how accepting the school system has been being an alternative family dynamic and that we have four parents and that I can put down when I register kids for school that they have more than two parents.
We're elated on any documentation that allows for more than two parents and that says safe adult instead of parent or whatever it is. That's something I would challenge you to do, especially if you're monogamous, is to change that language instead of if you're talking to a kid and you don't know their family structure or their parental dynamic, is to say, go to your safe adult, or what did your safe adult say, or what did your adult say, instead of parent, or you could even say parental figure, but instead of mom or dad, because you just never know. And that stuff has really opened our eyes and changed the way that we communicate with kids that we don't know, families that we're not familiar with their dynamic, because it can feel really hurtful. It can feel really hurtful and awkward, and you just don't know. And so many people assume, but living in a non-traditional family has really opened our eyes to just being more mindful of the words that we use.
Just thinking of like, if you say, go check with your mom and they're raised by two dads,
right.
Like you don't even realize your own bias sometimes when you just assume that there's a mom figure in their life when you don't know. They could be raised in a foster home or by grandparents or by non-binary or two dads. Like, you don't know. So being able to not make that assumption and just say, can you ask your adult? Let's at least assume that they're being raised by an adult.
Yeah. I know that, God, I hope so. I know a lot of teachers that have made that switch, and I really appreciate that. And like Alicia said, and I know we've mentioned it before, we have had just such a fantastic response, even this last year for Mother's Day. Like, Barrett came home with 2 gifts, and that stuff is so special, means the world to us. And it's not something that we're going to throw a fit about if we don't get. In fact, we're probably not even going to notice, but we do absolutely notice when it goes the other way. And that's really special. And I think part of that is our open communication about it all. And I know that obviously, again, we have a lot of privilege to be able to do that. But like the kids' first year at school, after we had moved in together and had been established for a while, we made a little postcard to take to school. And it had a picture of our family, and it had a little blurb about us being a blended family, which is what we often use if we're initially introducing ourselves to someone. We'll say we're a big blended family. There's 4 adults, 5 kids, and we can leave it at that. How much detail they get changes based on how many questions they ask and the conversation and where it goes. But that is like the bare minimum. Is like, we're a blended family. You might see 4 different parents come to pick them up. We're all in the same home together. That's something to know. If the kids ever ask to make extra gifts and you can accommodate, we'd be happy to bring extra supplies. Thank you very much. And Alicia and I, at the very least, a lot of times are the ones to go to the school events, back to school night, whatever it may be. And we make sure to introduce ourselves because 1, we don't want our kids to have to explain their family dynamic if it comes up. 2, well, I mean, they all know us now.
Yeah, we live in a small enough town that it's like, they know us. We haven't had to reintroduce ourselves very often. I grew up in this town, people.
They all know, but yes. We still take the time to go introduce ourselves because we decided when our kids went to school, we felt that us taking responsibility for explaining this and letting their teacher know what they have going on at home, what their family dynamic and family structure is our job.
Yes.
And as they get older, they can take that on. But right now, I don't want them to have to explain this family dynamic, even though they're very capable of it. And even Dylan has used step parent interchangeably when he doesn't want to explain, and which is probably never. He's a man of few words. But we wanted to take on that responsibility, and that's where the postcard kind of came in. Is we want to make sure that we're giving them a resource, we're explaining it, they see our faces, they know who we are, and they understand that this is safe.
And like I said, we've had a overwhelmingly very positive reception from all of their schools and sporting activities and clubs that they've been in. Everybody has always been very welcoming and making sure that 4 of us have been included. And besides like extra like Mother's Day and Father's Day gifts or things like that, I'm trying to think of like anything else that we've been a part of, but it's never been only 2 parents.
They've always accommodated us in ways that made us feel like a family, like the family that we are, because it really sucks to feel like a family behind closed doors and then go out in the world and have that completely invalidated by not being able to. Like, I remember the first year when we weren't really established and I went to sign something for Dylan or Raina and they were like, no, we need their legal parent. And like, I totally get that. Totally get it. Okay. I understand the law doesn't mean it doesn't feel awful. That stuff, even though it makes sense and I understand the law and I understand that it's not a personal problem, it still really hurts.
Well, I experienced that when I signed Carver up for preschool this year. Like, I typically am the person who signs all the kids up for school. And I mean, I've done it for Dylan and Raina their entire lives because I had Dylan and Raina before we even met you and Sean. And so...
And that's just not my gig.
Yeah. I'm type A, if you didn't know.
Sean would be signing them up for school. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, but like...
But in between the 4 adults, Sean and I typically take on those roles.
The paperwork. Yeah. Logistics.
And so I have always signed Dylan and Raina up for sports and school and things like that. And if I am getting close to a deadline on something, Sean will send me a text and be like, have you registered the kids for school yet? And I will be like, yes, I already took care of
And
that.
then I will plan the school clothes shopping.
Yes. Uh, and she'll be like, and here are the outfits I've found for them.
I totally do. So I'll be like, here's the bus route. And I'll be like, here's the school supplies.
Yes. But when I went to go register Carver for the first time, this is my first time registering one of my non-biological children, and I'm signing them up. I'm signing Carver up for preschool, and it's asking for his legal guardians, and I can't write myself down in that paper. And so I'm signing Carver up for preschool, and I'm writing in Sean's name and I'm writing in Taya's name, and it's saying like, are you the legal guardian of this child? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And
Which is
it's just
so weird considering you cut his umbilical cord and
right.
not Carver, but quite
Yes, like you said, I've wiped his butt since day one. Like I've been there for him his entire life, and now I'm going to register him for preschool, and I can't say I'm a legal guardian of him.
Mm-hmm. And does that change anything? No. Does it hurt? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
And
stinks.
so it's like even to get the confirmation that he is registered for school, I'm like, I questioned myself. I'm like, do I put my own email address in there?
Yeah.
Because technically I'm not his legal guardian. It was a weird situation where I'm just like, okay, I normally would get this information myself and make sure that he's registered, but like, should I not be putting my own information in here? Because technically I'm not.
And obviously we want to do things by the book, and
Yeah.
we're not trying to make things more difficult, but it's simple in our mind because we are the people, and we're more than happy to go through the process of what it takes to be a legal guardian, but we don't have that option. Not until we move to another county, not until we, change the laws, not until and it's like,
not until we have an extra 10 grand lying around and go through at least a year-long process and hopefully have a judge that has an open enough mind, that's educated enough to see our family as valid enough to say yes.
it's kind of sad. But the second lawyer that we met gave us a lot of hope. She felt very hopeful. She felt very excited about going through the process. There are other organizations that help with these sort of things. There are resources. There's lawyers. There's a law firm that specifically works on these sorts of things, not in Oregon. But I will put all those resources in the description so you can check them out for yourself.
And bet your ass that when I become a legal guardian of those kids, I'm going to be writing myself in when I'm registering them for school as heck yeah, I'm legal guardian.
I just watched I know we frame their birth certificates with three names. We want to be the people to blaze that trail if that's the case.
Absolutely.
We want to try it. We have the capacity to do it. I mean, not right now, but like the long term is that we will go through this process and we will take you guys with us. And I reached back out to the will and trust people. So we're going to go through that process. And we will film it and we will record it and we will talk about it because we think it's really important. Even monogamous people can have a will and a trust. Oh,
do it. Please get a will and a trust.
Please don't make your bonus kid go through what she went through. It was
don't
hellish.
send a text message saying this is my will.
That's not a will.
No. Get it notarized. Go through the actual process, please. Your family members, it's not for you. It's for the people you leave behind when something happens.
It's a safety precaution and you just never know. And if you want to show up for your family and protect them, that's what you got to do. Be a little uncomfortable for their comfort because nobody should have to face the tragedy of loss and also deal with the legal system that is wills, because it is, and probate and all that.
And there are amazing law firms out there that will hold your hand and walk you through the entire process, and they are wonderful and great at it. It still doesn't make it easy. It's still hard to do.
To grieve.
Yeah.
You're trying to grieve and you're having to get on the phone with a lawyer every other day and you're having to prove all this stuff and you're having to dig through their paperwork, and it's just like, that's the last thing you want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia briefly mentioned LLCs earlier, but I do know that that's something that quite a few people, I've heard other polyamorous families talk about. You can put your house in the LLC as a business. And so if you create an LLC with, like, for example, the four of us or three of you, however many, if you create an LLC and you're all on the business and your home is a part of the business or your car is a part of the business, then it's covered.
Yeah.
That's really all I know.
Yeah, it's good to be able to put your property or assets in the LLC, because then if something were to happen to legal spouses at the same time, so that's what we talk about, like oftentimes when we're talking about something happening, it's like a tragedy or something along those lines. But if something were to happen to two people at the same time, in our case, like the house being under Tyler's and my name, if something were to happen to both of us at the same time and we don't have a will set up, we don't have it under the LLC, that it could be detrimental.
The difference between having a trust or an LLC and a will and not in this scenario is that if something were to happen to Tyler and Alicia, we could be displaced from our home, separate our kids, like all of those things are all happening on top of losing two parents, our partners and parents to our kids. So it's a nightmare for us. It is a nightmare. And it costs $10,000 in a fucking dream to pull off that protection. So any little bit that we can do to protect ourselves, we want to do it. Because can you imagine losing your home? And let's say we don't even have to fight for custody of the kids, but we have all 5 of the kids. Let's say there's no issues with custody of the kids, but now we have 5 kids, 2 parents, and no home. Even though we've lived in, take care of, and paid for this home for years and years and years, but we're not on the house because we can't.
Right. So now the state is selling the house or whatever because the assets go to the kids, but the kids can't own the house.
And they won't get them until they're 18.
Yeah. So
right?
I don't know about that. I don't know the legalities.
I think a lot of times they just stick it in a
state mandated trust or something until they're 18.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing with the trust is being able to make sure that whoever has custody of your kids cannot spend the kids' money. If it's in a trust, then it's designated for your kids at a certain point in time in their life too.
Right. And our kids, we've worked really hard to make sure our kids have accounts that have things in them that can continue to build equity so they have protections for when they are adults, right? Because we want to set them up for success and we're privileged enough to be able to do that. However, if there's not protections over that money and they were to go to someone else even temporarily, that could again be financially detrimental to their futures and all the hard work that we've put in.
Yeah.
Because in a trust, you can say, this goes to my kid when they're 18, nobody else is allowed to touch it. You can split it up how you want, all that stuff.
There is a way to have some rights over a non-biological child when it comes to healthcare, and that is being able to have like a health care or like third party power of attorney. And we need to look into that more, but it was something that was suggested to us and we want to look into it. And this is something that would be if something happened to Tyler and I at the same time, or we were working and couldn't get there fast enough and Taya or Sean were taking one of the older 3 kids in and they asked, are you a biological parent? And they weren't, they legally can't make any decisions about those kids.
Imagine I say yes to get the kid in and make decisions, and then you show up and they're like, no, their mom's already here.
Right. I have called and made appointments for the younger 2 kids, and they've asked me on the phone, are you mom? And I'm like, yeah.
They do call you mom.
Yeah, they really do.
Every once in a while they'll be like, you need to call them.
Yes, I have been called 2 different times.
Even though we had the paperwork in.
Yeah.
We had the paperwork in, it was up to date and everything. They still call and they're like, hey, can this person make decisions on behalf? And she's like, yeah, dude. They're on the paperwork.
And because it's a small town, the person knew me personally. And she's like, I'm sorry, Alicia, that I have to call and ask this, but is it okay that Sean's bringing this Dylan in for his appointment today? I'm like, yes, I'm aware he is there and he is okay to be there and make decisions.
Please. Otherwise, I'm going to have to reschedule.
I'm like, we are well aware. We all make decisions together. We all live together. And this was the plan for him to take him in today. So thank you for your concern. But that was the plan. But there is third party power of attorney for healthcare. And so being able to get that set up and give a third party, being a third parent, power of attorney when it comes to healthcare is a way in order to give at least another one of our parents permission to have the kids treated. So, like we're saying, if something happens and we're not able to take one of the kids in, then one of the other adults can still make decisions, still be in the room, because life is unpredictable. Things happen, and we want to be able to care for our kids, even if we're not there, even if we're not biologically
Right.
the parent.
I'd sure as hell rather, I mean, obviously we don't have like jealousy issues when it comes to the kids, but I would sure as hell rather have Alicia be able to be there if I can't be there, or vice versa. Like what?
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember when I took Quentin in for his ear infection. Like, I think you were traveling.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I needed to take our baby in. He was miserable.
Yeah.
Like,
I recently had someone reach out who's in a polyamorous relationship and they're getting ready to be parents. They're the non-biological mother of the child, and they wanted to know what we know about the birth certificate and how to protect themselves. And, you know, I reached out to some organizations, and I'm still kind of gathering more research because it was in California. So anyone with information, I welcome it and I will pass along. But they were talking about how they're concerned that they can't take time off after the baby comes to be able to bond with the baby because they're not the biological parent. And so they can't afford to take work off, and they won't get paid for parental leave without being the biological parent, which is devastating that you can't stay home with your baby. Like, that's whether you birth them or not. When it comes to adoption things, there are ways around that, things you can apply for. And there are, I think, some that might fit for polyamorous parents, but really an initial search and reach out to organizations who do this work full time said there aren't a lot of options. And that is devastating. And that's something that we want to blaze a trail on and that we want to fix for people, because it's not fair. It's not fair that they're not able to get that same opportunity to bond with their baby and not stress about finances at the same time. And it's better for the child, right? It's better for the child to have that other parent around. You cannot convince me that it is in the best interest of the child to not have that second mother around, and the partner to not have their partner around. That's something we got really lucky about when it came to having Quentin. Is I had really bad postpartum depression. It was my second C-section. Like, my mental health was really struggling. We were going to film. So like all of those things combined had me really nervous about, and then also Carver and Barrett were still really little. I wasn't working at the time, so for any time taken off, again, like Alicia didn't have anything that would allow her to take time off to stay home with him and get paid and financially be able to replace that or even come up with half of it, right?
yeah.
We got really lucky because right after Quinta was born, they came out with paid leave Oregon, and she was able to apply for that. And I don't remember the details at all.
Okay. In September of 2023, so the month that Quentin was born, we got really lucky because that was the month that paid leave Oregon started. And I was able to apply and got approved to be a support person for Taya postpartum. So even though I wasn't a biological parent for Quentin, I was able to be Taya's support person.
Because they opened it up to non-family, essentially was what it was. Is previously it was family only, but they opened it up to, I think it was like support people,
Yeah,
or
it was
like
within
relevant,
household.
yeah, like household.
Yeah. And it was actually somebody within my HR at my work who knew about our family, and she's like, Alicia, you're eligible for this. You can apply for this and use it to support Taya and get paid time off to be at home to support her and be able to bond with the baby. So Sean was able to apply for it for his paternal leave. And I think Tyler took a couple of weeks off initially just because his work was flexible as well. So we all were able to take the first 2 weeks off after Quentin was born. But then in between Sean and I, with paid leave Oregon and taking time off, we made sure that Taya wasn't home alone at all for at least the first 8 weeks that Quentin was born.
Being able to still have that income from the two of them allowed Tyler to take time off. And we kind of rotated through. Thank you so much for listening to our story told our way.
With Carver, when he was born, it was closer to the Christmas holiday.
With Quentin, they kind of rotated out so that there was always somebody home. But even then, it's really hard not to have your whole family home. If you've had a baby, like I craved and cried a lot about not being able to have everybody home all the time. Although I was so thankful for the support and it made a huge difference in my recovery, it still really sucks that we couldn't have everybody home at one time because, and that's, even though we got lucky, we got financial support and we still had to rotate through. And I don't know, it just sucks for the non-traditional families who show up and love hard the same way or even more so than monogamous families do, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you show up for that kid and you're there every minute of every day. It doesn't matter if you're there for conception all the way through and you talk to him every day in the womb and you're going to cut the cord and you're going to do, I caught Barrett on the way out and cut the cord and helped name him and was there for all of it. And I don't have a lick of rights over the kid. So it's kind of a mind fuck, to be honest with you. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Because I am his mom. Like, I am also his mom. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But legally, I'm not.
Yeah. And even though paid leave Oregon, you could get leave for recovery from a C-section. And at the time when I applied for it, we didn't know you were going to have a C-section. And I applied for support for you in just recovery of being able, or of just giving birth in general. And I could have extended it longer for recovery from a C-section.
And I think a postpartum played a role in that a little bit too.
And postpartum played a role in it. And I just thought it was amazing that I was able to have somebody from work who knew of our situation, who knew about our family, supportive of our family, and specifically sought me out to make sure that I knew that this was an option for our family and that I could apply for this and take that time off. We love you, Karen. And take this time off to be able to bond with my baby and help my partner recover from birth and postpartum and everything while we were filming.
So thankful. Cried my eyeballs out that we could, just at this like blip, just at this tiny little ability to apply for assistance, her being able to apply for assistance for me was magical.
I did not expect it, didn't know it was going to be possible, didn't know that I was going to get approved for it or how easy it was. And we got lucky because it was at the very beginning of the program when there was still a lot of money available.
And they've tightened down the rules since.
Yes. But at the time it worked great for our family. And I wish more states did that. And I hope that for everybody who's listening that your state has something like that. And if you're looking for something that is available so that you do have the ability to support your non-traditional family or even your traditional family, because the United States doesn't have as many. It sucks. Doesn't have the same sort of support system for maternity leave, paternity leave, and being able to bond with your kids, which is terrible.
Before we close out, our good friend Chad has helped us with a list of practical tips and checklists for families outside of the law.
1, research your state and county. Find your local family law attorneys that are experienced with non-traditional families.
In your area, too.
Yes.
Number 2 is draft a co-parenting agreement. Include as many contingencies as possible. So if this, then that.
3, executive powers of attorney, medical consent, guardianship documents for each child and with backups.
4, include all partners in estate planning, wills, trust, life insurance, designations, and guardianship provisions.
5, document your family structure, i.e. a relationship summary letter you can present to schools and hospitals.
6, maintain clear financial records. Who pays for what, contributions, ownership, to help with any disputes that may come up.
Oh, that's a good one. 7, Review and update things frequently. Remember, things are ever changing. Whenever someone moves, relationships change, or jurisdiction changes.
And 8, advocate locally. Join or support polyamorous advocacy groups. Push for ordinance changes in your city. So again, I will put some resources in the description. There are places like Open that have lots of resources for non-traditional families. They are actively working to change the laws across the US. They have online groups that meet, so you can show up there, you can support them. There's other law firms where you can ask questions, and just use your resources. Even if you don't need it right now, look around, see what's out there, see if there's a lawyer in your area who might want to start a conversation, because these things also take forever. These things take forever. So it doesn't hurt to have a conversation and to see what your options are and to see how you can protect your family. Also with Open, they have a survey going on. It's kind of like a polyamorous census in a way. They're gathering information from polyamorous people so that they can continue to update on the polyamorous community and have accurate statistics on the polyamorous community. It's super, super, super important that they have accurate information. So as many people that can fill it out as possible. It does take about 20 minutes, but it's really not that long. It's kind of fun to fill out a document that speaks your language. And it's only open until the 17th. So if you're seeing this, you've got the rest of the week maybe to hop on and do that. Set a reminder for yourself, for the ADHD girlies. Please make it happen. Send it to your partners, send it to your polyamorous communities. This is really important work that they're doing. They're on Instagram as well. They have social media. They post often, and they also host online groups often. So all of those things are super important to keep in mind and to be supporting organizations like this, because these legal protections they're important. They're not just like special treatment, but they're important for protecting families. They're important for protecting kids, and every kid deserves to have the security that comes along with a family that they know isn't going to be torn apart, right? They deserve for their caregivers to be protected under the law.
We appreciate you tuning in every week and listening to us yap.
I know we've said thank you 1,000 times, but I seriously, anybody who knows me in real life knows that I can't stop talking about how healing this has all been. It's been so much fun. I was scared.
But the reception has been so amazing.
So amazing.
We love all the positive comments and how much you guys have shown up and supported us along the way. If you have loved our podcast, please share it with somebody else that you think is going to love it, and like it, rate it, subscribe. We love you.
And if you know anything, either state specific or in the US in general, that can help with legal protections, please drop it in the comments and we will happily share it.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time
on MetaMoms.